Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks to all the early birds who are hanging out in the live chat waiting to kick things off. Good to see everyone sort of introducing each other. We got a lot of people joining us today. I'm psyched. Gonna let some more people get on, but I just wanted to jump on and say hey to everyone and say thanks for joining us today. We're really excited to kick off this TuneCore Awards Masterclass. We'll be diving into some really important subjects around music promotion. Some of you may recognize me from our TuneCore live sessions or maybe our Instagram live interviews, but I'm Kevin Cornell. If you haven't seen me before, I'm TuneCore's event marketing manager. And before we kick things off, I just kind of wanted to jump in on, a little bit about how this came together. So a lot of you might know last month we introduced TuneCore Rewards as a way to bring education to the forefront, while also giving artists, TuneCore artists a chance to get perks and resources along the way. So if you're a TuneCore artist, you can actually start taking advantage of TuneCore Rewards and gain access to all the amazing artists and industry professionals that got involved with us for this project and for the program itself. All you need to do is have a TuneCore account, and you can just begin watching masterclasses. You can start earning points and redeeming rewards. Eventually, as you go and you complete more of these, you can unlock new episodes, you can get more rewards, and even attend exclusive VIP sessions. And we're going to be adding to this all the time. So it's really exciting because the opportunities are truly never ending. With all of that said, I did want to, sort of introduce today's hosts. I'm going to get them on here in a second. And what's up, guys? Just a quick introduction. First off, we have Amy Lombardi, TuneCore's very own. Amy has been working with TuneCore artists, managers, labels, and our DSP partners for nearly 6 years. Before TuneCore, Amy worked at major labels, independent PR firms in New York, and she ran her own boutique PR and artist management firm in Chicago. She's worked with seminal artists like REM, Radiohead, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Van Halen, the Foo Fighters, and she's developed indie artists like Nico Case, Cass McCombs, the New Pornographers, and more. Joining us also is Chris Maltese. Chris brings years of diverse music industry experience to the table as well. Chris produced for MTV for close to a decade. He's managed Grammy Award-winning artists at Primary Wave. He most recently heads up Believe US Artist Services and has played a major role in developing the Pivotal Projects label. Last but certainly not least is David Corey, self-managed global independent pop artist who's toured the world. He's competed on X Factor. He's sold hundreds of thousands of units and millions of streams. We're so excited to have him with us today. David has an abundance of branding experience too, including working with Coca-Cola and FIFA's World Cup campaign, just to name a few. So obviously, when we're talking about music promotion, you're talking to three pretty serious hosts. And I just wanted to say thank you guys for hosting this. I know the crowd's in for a real treat. I'm going to jump off screen for the time being, and they're going to jump into the masterclass. So just want to say thanks again for joining, and I'll let you guys kick things off.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks,
All
Kevin.
right.
Hey, everybody. Great to have you. Great to see you, Chris and David. Let's get started. What we're going to talk about today are like four pivotal areas, no pun intended, Chris.
I like it.
You like it? I got that in there. What you should always be thinking about when you're kind of building as an artist. We kind of wrote these down today because we feel like, especially considering all the digital marketing that you can do, there are four pretty basic elements that we're going to cover. The first one we're going to cover is your story as an artist. So you're all artists, you all got something to say. How are you going to share it? How are you going to figure out what it is? David, I wanted to get your take on this part because you have, not only developed your story, but you've shared it worldwide now. So what can you share with everybody about it?
Honestly, I think it's been, obviously everybody's story is a little bit different. So, I mean, it's really just how you hone into what your story is and make that work for you. I think that's kind of the thing that I've been able to really dive into, making sure that I was well aware of who I am as a person first and seeing how I can transcend that into the music, and then seeing what the response was, the type of engagement, what people wanted to hear. And I tell people all the time to ask me for advice is like, you know, once you put it out there, man, it's a free world for them to tell you how they feel about it. And it's important for us to understand the analytics. And I just started really gauging more into the certain areas where people were listening to what I do. And I've realized what works for me is being completely transparent in my vulnerability as an artist and really, you know, digging into some of my personal woes and my story and my pain, because I feel like just what we went through with COVID and certain things of that nature, that just really being super transparent and open, mine is about uplifting people, and that's what's worked for me. So, you know, I think that's important that you really understand what you're gonna do with who you are before you put it out there. So
it is true that you touched on something, and I want to hear what Chris thinks about this, about, you know, that's your story. So each artist has their own unique story and journey and background.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, having a story, it's almost like a fingerprint, right? Like we all have them, but they are all unique to us.
Yeah.
So I think that, you know, from at least being on like now the label side of things, what artists have to remember is that it's, you know, your team or your eventual team isn't out there just pushing and selling the music itself. We're really pushing and selling the artist and what the artist is all about, and you know who that artist is, where they come from, what they believe in, what they connect to. So yeah, I think being able to define your story and really be able to, you know, verbalize that and show that in a visual way, it's important, because it allows the fan to really connect to you beyond just the song, beyond the sound, beyond the lyrics. It's about who you are as an individual and what that is that you want to portray to the world. So it's, you know, I think having a very well-defined story is important, and it's important that the artists stay authentic to that story.
How do you guys suggest that artists figure out what their story is? Like, if you, sometimes it comes so naturally to artists, right? Because it's how they grew up. It's what their background is as a human being. And sometimes I know artists who couldn't figure it out, and I'm like, but I start talking to them, and I'm like, but you were forced to take piano lessons, and you know, and now, you know, you're writing music that you were never kind of forced to rehearse and learn, but it did seep in somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think that like any artist who thinks, you know, my story might not be that interesting or different, it's probably more of a case of I just don't know how to creatively say it or creatively tell it. I mean, we all have, like we said, we all have these stories. So it's just about finding the right way. Like you said, I mean, you're right. Some artists have these unbelievable paths, and it's really easy to just pinpoint, you know, what their story is because of these crazy things they went through or obstacles that they've overcome. But we've all overcome obstacles, right? And I feel like, you know, it's not just about obstacles. It's also about what brought you into music and what's happened for you since, and you know, the things that you've picked up along the way that kind of make you who you are as both a person and an artist. So it's artists are creative people. You just have to figure out, you know, how do I creatively get my story across so that it represents me the best way, and it helps me to connect with the fans that, you know, that I have now or potentially could have down the road. It's just, you just have to creatively look at your past and look at your story, and then, you know, pull out the pieces that are going to be able to connect with people.
Yeah.
yeah, I
love
agree.
about the fingerprint. David, I want to hear what you have to say about that, but I also want you to talk a little bit about the brand part, how you kind of figured out which part of your story
Yeah.
became the part that you really wanted to.
Yeah, I 100% agree with what you just said, by the way. I'm a big believer in when you build a house, it's brick by brick. Everything is organic. And I think a lot of people, different opinions can sway. And I always say that you need to trust your gut. My story is a big part of what I do. But, you know, I fell in love with music before I knew what a dollar bill was. This is all genuine. This is from a pure love. I was singing a cappella in front of my mom when I was in Tower Records when I was 5 years old. My dad built a stage out of my bed when I was 5. So this is the purity behind it. It's so, excuse me, it's so raw and so real. I just don't force anything because I can't feel it. Therefore, I'm not going to give a genuine representation of who I am. I think that's important. But building a brand, your brand is almost just as big as your music. You know what I mean? Like your brand is you. Like there's so much that goes into it. It's the sound. It's okay. What's your story? It's you know, merchandising. What's the sound? There's so much that goes into it. My brand is called Urban Rock, and I studied the Wiz Khalifa's with Taylor Gang and Mac Miller's Rest in Peace with Most Dope, Jay-Z, Dame with Rockefeller. I just always you got to study, man. Knowledge is free and knowledge is power. So to tie it all in is you know, it just goes with the person. You know, you really have to want it because the percentile in this business is very small. And I also want to say lastly that don't judge somebody's success to dictate what you think yours is. If you're doing what you love, I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I think staying authentic to what you are is so hard these days because, and we'll talk about obviously one of the 4 topics we're going to cover in digital promotion is going to be social media, but it is really hard to be on socials and comparing yourself, right?
Yes.
What am I supposed to be if I'm not like that? So what are artists who's like don't have these big stories? Like what can we share about how to find what's unique about them? Like I always recommend that you know, it's more than just the bio, but I always recommend like artists when they're writing a bio about themselves, or even when they're trying to figure out those like that very short one-liner for Instagram, like
Right.
talk to the people that like you trust, who know your music, whether that's like family, friends, like what do they get from your music? And what do they get from you that you don't see in yourself?
Chris, you want to take that over?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's a great point. I mean, it's always being an artist is sometimes like being in a bubble, right? Like you know what you're creating and you know when it's pouring out of you, but you don't know how other people feel about it. You'll never actually really know how other people feel about it unless you have honest conversations with them. So, yeah, getting that kind of feedback I think is super helpful, especially if there's people that are around you that you know whose opinions you trust and that you're close to. And then I think the other thing just to kind of note is that I also wouldn't get held up on your story, you know, today being your story forever, meaning it's okay to evolve. And I think that artists sometimes, you know, fans don't even understand, like, why is this artist changing? Like, what's going on here? And they don't realize that's just part of the artist story, that the brand is changing a little bit because the artist is growing, they're evolving. So, and, you know, for good or for bad, I mean, I don't think that there are a lot of artists out there who you know stay the same throughout their entire career. I mean, we have an artist on Pivotal Projects named Joey Trapp who, you know, this kid is like a release machine. He's always been just one to constantly release. And with him, you know, part of his story and part of what's becoming his brand now, he started producing a lot of his own music now. He is directing his own music videos. He is editing his own videos. I mean, part of his evolving story is now he is becoming a creator. He's not just a rapper anymore. He's now becoming becoming known as a creator. So that's a very conscious story that we're trying to tell, is that this kid is trying to stand out from the crowd by not just rapping. He's got other things that's going on too. So in fact, today, I think it was today or yesterday, he just posted on his socials, you know, I directed in 3 music videos in a single day, all with big budgets. Like, who else is doing that? That separates him. You know what I mean? That's part of what his brand is now becoming, is just overall creation and creativity.
And probably that comes from not having enough time to direct other people to do all these other things. And like, if I could learn how to do this, I could do it in 8 hours a day, and I can get it done faster. And so I think that's a really good point, that you know what you need is going to also help you grow and evolve as an artist, and that's going to change your brand. And most artists need to evolve. They have to evolve because they would mostly get tired of performing the same type of music, right?
Yeah. I think experience shapes all that as well. And Chris, that's an amazing. I'm glad you told that story, because I think basically what you're trying to explain in a nutshell is a dude is a Swiss Army knife. You can't wait on somebody else to do something for you. I grab the bull by the horns and make it happen.
Yeah,
that's a great story.
It's exactly the case. And I mean, just to add to it too, it's like, you know, being that self-sufficient, you're really in control of your own destiny. You know what I mean? If he decided tomorrow, hey, I'm going to stop rapping for a year and just go work on some other people's projects, he can do that. You know what I mean? He may do that at some point, but you know, the more he can control within his own little bubble, the prouder he's going to be of his own content, because he's got that much more of a say in it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. That gives him a little bit of freedom too.
Yep.
And to take time off to feel new things, to write new music. So the brand and the story go into the EPK. I talk with my hands a lot. I don't know if you can see my jazz hands. The brand and the story, they go into the EPK, and I know that everybody who's on YouTube and who's checking in are familiar with EPK and electronic press kit, and it's like your bio, it's your how to contact you, your social media links, photos for media. We need to make sure that everybody knows this is still important, and this is not like an archaic thing that artists need to have available at all times. I really want you guys to like drive this fact home that this is important.
Yeah, I mean, I can start, and I can tell you if there's anything that I may repeat over this, you know, next 50 minutes or whatever it is, it's probably going to be that artists, you have to find ways to separate yourselves from the pack. And what I mean by that is, it was like a month ago, I think Spotify came out and said, we have 60,000 new songs being uploaded to our platform every single day.
Right.
That's literally almost one a second. So when you think about the sheer numbers of that, the sheer volume of how much material is now coming out all at the same time, you really have to kind of focus on that. Well, how am I different? How am I going to get people's attention? And your EPK is one way that you can do that, because whether it's a full-on EPK or it's a one sheet, and by the way, that's evolved over time, right? It used to be physical. It used to be these big binders or folders and CDs and papers, and nobody loved them.
A lot of velvet.
A lot of velvet. Yeah, they cost money to make and to mail, and it was such a pain. Now it's as simple as like, oh, I could just go onto the Sonic Bids and just plug in my info, and there it is. Boom. I can just send this link as many times as I want. So it's really not cumbersome for either the artist or for the person on the other side. The big thing to note, though, is that, and maybe something else I may repeat a few times as well, you always have to put yourself on the other side of the equation, right? So if you're sending somebody an A&R, a publicist, a blogger, a playlist curator, if you're sending them something, think about it if you were on the other side. What would you want to see? What would you see to think to yourself like, oh, wow, this stands out. This is different. I'm going to remember this tomorrow. And those are sort of the points that you want to drive home. So yes, you want to have your bio. You want to have your links to your socials. You want to have stats. You want to have, anything that's going to make you kind of stand out, any bullet points about you. I mean, all of these things are really quick, digestible ways for people to understand who you are as an artist, what your sound is like, some of the things that you're up to, and be able to digest it all quickly. And again, time is money. And with all of the music that's coming out today, with the sheer volume of the emails that are being sent to these people every single day, you want to be able to, leave an impact kind of quickly. So the EPK, yes, it's still very important.
Absolutely.
How long did it take you to evolve what you were sending out to people?
For me, I mean, I think that's the most, it's funny that you guys are talking about the EPK, because I just trying to bring it up in my phone. I literally just updated my EPK about 3 weeks ago. And I tell this to a lot of artists too, just people in general. What's old to you is new to somebody else.
Exactly.
That is so important, because I get hung up a lot. Oh man, I love this song. Well, why can't you create like 20 more of these? Or, hey, I love this picture. Well, why can't you do like 20 more of these that are better? So I think, to move off your point, like this, it's not archaic. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a very, very imperative that you guys, get tuned into as much as that can elevate your craft forward and give somebody different, because you never know what song, you never know what picture somebody likes. This is what your brain tricks you to think. You think you know that you have all the answers, and then they'll send you a text or an email or a DM, and they're like, bro, that's the one. Really? You like that one? that's why it's always good to be consistent and update your content. I think that's super important. So
Yeah, and I can add some like a little organizational suggestions in there, like put
100%.
put it in like a PDF or put it on your website in a specific page on your website that says, EPK or Media Kit, or put it all in a Google Drive that is totally a shareable link, and nobody has to go back and email you and say, I
100%.
can't open this, I can't access this, because you don't want to have any barriers to that kind of
Yep.
attention. If they're already there and they're trying to get into it, you definitely don't want them to have any trouble. I also think, consider how it looks when you're sending information. Like, make sure your grammar and your punctuation are on point.
100%.
Just, you want to be taken seriously, and make sure when somebody looks at it, they're not like, oh God, this is a mess. Now I have to dig through what this looks like.
100%.
Make sure it's like, it looks, good.
Make sure it looks good, but also when you send it, whoever you're sending it to, don't do just a copy and a paste. And
Yes.
you know what I'm saying? Like, you're again figuring how to stand out from everybody else. Don't send me something that you just changed the name. I mean, I've literally gotten emails where I've gotten somebody else's name on it. Like, they just, took the whole thing. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you want to send me something, like, dig into what it is that I'm doing that you can relate to. So I always tell artists, like, look, if you're gonna reach out to a blogger or whatever with your EPK, use the person's name, but then also start it off by saying, hey, I'm a really big fan of that last article you wrote on so and so, and my music happens to fit in that lane too. You know what I mean? So you're kind of like starting it off by saying, okay, I know what you do.
Right.
I could be of use to you. You could be of use to me. I would love to have you
Right.
check it out and be respectful. And yeah, of course, punctuation, all that stuff is so important. There's nothing worse than like getting an email that you're trying to like, you need a translator for. So be professional.
Yeah.
Well, you guys probably get a lot of spam mail on the day-to-day, so something that sticks out to you that's a little bit different. It takes maybe 2 more minutes to really conjure up and say a little bit differently than they would just say to one of their friends or their homeboys and be like, hey, you guys are going to be like, wow, well, that's flattering. He took the time to really do some research on myself, and he's trying to pitch himself. I respect that. Let me click and see what's going on there. So yeah, you have to be very mindful of that. I respect that.
Yeah, I remember when I was a publicist. Publicists, I don't know who contacts more people than publicists, right?
Right.
And so, we kept data, we kept notes about what writers wrote about, what kind of music they liked, not only like what section they wrote about, but like what they had covered in the past that we sent them. Like, it's not a bad idea to, make your pool smaller of who you're going to reach out to,
Right.
and make it stronger at the same
Right.
time,
100%.
like that, because it might be taken more seriously. Your percentages might go up. It's really can be helpful and be sustained too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And another thing I want to mention, just like as part of the EPK, is like that bio that you're gonna maybe kind of talked about, like what your story is. Like, make sure it's like updated. Don't keep the same bio for a year at a time, unless you're only making one album every year, because chances are these days you're doing a lot in 1 year, and you want to kind of keep a running list in there of what's like the juiciest part of what you've been working on.
Absolutely. And you definitely want to get people's attention too. So if you do hit certain accolades, like, that's a great place to put it. You know what I mean? You want to be able to say, my last 2 singles crossed X amount of streams, or it led to a sync on this TV show, or, I'll be opening for so-and-so on tour. I think too, like, whether it's an EPK or a bio, I mean, name recognition is, I don't want to say it's good for fluff purposes. But it's always, it makes you a little bit more relatable. So if you're sending me an EPK or a bio, I probably don't know who you are already. You're probably not some A-list name. However, if you have connections to names that I'm going to recognize, I'm going to be able to figure out a little bit more quickly, what lane you're in and who you might be associated with. So it might be something where, a producer you worked with also produced artist X, Y, and Z that I've heard of. Or, you did go out on tour and it was, opening for artist X, Y, and Z who I know of. Those things kind of legitimize you. So figure out ways, again, don't lie about it. Don't create fluff. That will kill credibility real quick. But, if you do have ties to other quote unquote names, figuring out creative ways to do that without being disrespectful and just kind of, putting yourself in their lane, it is helpful. And I think even being on the other side of it, it allows us to figure out where it is that you're going and who you might be associated with.
Yeah, and Krista, to add to your point, I actually wanted to give a different perspective because I understand what you just said. And then sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes you don't have to oversell anything. Sometimes just that elusive, like, yo, who is this guy? And the product speaks for itself. You don't have to oversell anything. And I've learned that stuff. Like sometimes we tell somebody, like, yeah, I did this, I did that, I did that, I did that. Sometimes like those people, like, they're turned off by you telling them all that. And then the opposite end is like, hey man, I'm a singer. Check this out if you're interested. If you're not, no hard feelings. And you never know who's gonna bite. But it's very important to put that bait out there because you never know who's gonna bite. So I just want to give a little different perspective of what you said because I agree. I think that's very smart. I can't write bios for nothing. So sometimes I'm just like, let me just keep this as simple as possible. And if you like it, I love it.
Right. Yeah. No. Listen, I don't disagree with you. You definitely shouldn't overdo that. You shouldn't be just some name dropper where you're like, wait a minute,
right.
Stretch Armstrong over here is trying to pull a little too far. You don't want to be that guy.
Right.
But again, just to give yourself some credibility, if there is an appropriate tie to an artist or a producer, whoever, it could be helpful in getting them to click that link and listen.
Absolutely. 100%. I agree.
Yeah, I think those are both great. And just as when I was a publicist, also we would, one of my things was if I knew somebody hated everything, I'd be like, I don't think you're gonna like this, but I am sending it to you.
That's a good thing.
Immediately they wanted to tell me that they loved it.
Right. The Jedi mind trick. I like it.
Jedi mind trick. That's a good one.
So taking all of this, like taking everything that like the EPK, the work that you're doing to figure out like what you're about, how you're organizing it to tell other people what you're about, and also, if you can't write a bio, get help. You can
absolutely.
You can have. There's college students that are, really wanting to work in the music industry in some way. You could pay them.
Amy, question for you, being a publicist, if you don't mind. So for some of the artists that can't afford publicists, what would you recommend them to do?
Well, that's really interesting you say that because we thought about talking about like publicity in today's session. We were like, that's a whole other thing right now because social media has taken over as the step after your EPK. It's really your social media that comes in instead of hiring a publicist to tell your story. You got to tell your story.
Absolutely.
And you have the opportunity right now to tell your story directly to potential fans and people that you already know in your life. So it's kind of like the next step. And it's actually the next thing we want to talk about, but it's actually the next step in your career after like getting your website down, getting your bio, your EPK, is getting all of your socials down. And let's talk about like why that's so important, because when it's free, first of all, until you start buying digital ads, right? And publicists cost money. A lot of times right now, publicists aren't going to be able to do any more for you than you can do for yourself in like today's music market 2021, right? Because you live somewhere, and so wherever you live has local media, and they want to know about you as a local artist in their market. So it may be Chicago, there may be a lot more competition, Los Angeles, New York, but they still want to know what you're doing. So you should be able to reach out to them directly at this point. But social media is like, there's a lot of different platforms, and some people are most comfortable on Twitter. If you've got like a certain type of personality and you really want to get in there for a few hours or a good hour every time you jump on to really have conversations with people. And then obviously other people are more visual, and Instagram really works. They have like a thought and an example. So let's talk a little bit about what works for you, David. What's your favorite?
It's interesting that you asked that, because I was talking to my friend when I was in Maryland just a few hours ago, and I was like, bro, I can't keep up, but I have every single one. Like I make sure I have Instagram, the Facebook, the Twitter, the Triller, the TikTok, Vine before it's all. I've had every single thing, but once I really started honing into what works for me, like I'm more on Instagram. For Facebook, I try to share more of like inspirational things from Twitter that I like. I literally have like created this wave, but TikTok is all the singing videos. People want to see that, the FYP hashtag, they want to see that. But it was plug and play for me. I just really had to figure it out. But I think that's really solely on the person. I know so many people that are viral on TikTok. I know people that are viral on Instagram. It's just really what works for you. But I think you should be aware of what's out there just to know. I think that's very important. Even if you're not on it, just know what it is. So when someone says something, you don't look like you're 90 years old and outdated.
I think as soon as you like decide on your artist name, you should try to claim all
Absolutely.
of handles across all platforms, even if you're not going to use them. You don't want somebody else to.
Absolutely. No, that's super important. Yeah, I mean, getting verified isn't easy. That's been a process, but it happened relatively quickly for me. X Factor was the first year that Instagram was created that I was on. That was like 2012. But everything else has been just super organic, man. I mean, I just feel like you never know where somebody's watching, and the day that you feel like nobody is the day that could change your life. And I really believe that, because it's happened to me. So just be as open to anything, even if it's like, nah, man, I don't do that. Just try it. Just say you did it, so you don't feel like you copped out later. You know what I mean?
Chris, what do you look for, like from the pivotal point of view?
Yeah, I mean, from a label stance or from anybody on the other side, I mean, social media is about as crucial for your career, especially when you're first starting out and you don't have a machine behind you, or a company behind you, budgets behind you, all of that, as it gets. And I think that some artists are really good at social media and some aren't. Like you said, some prefer to just be on Instagram and let somebody else deal with the others. To me, I think as an artist, you have to realize that it's a mistake to not be present where the masses are. And what I mean by that is you might not be someone who is on Twitter a lot, right? Like that might not be your preference, but a lot of people are. So have a presence there. You don't have to be on there every day. You can set up your Instagram to just copy it into your Twitter, but you should be there, right? There are so many people now on TikTok, right? And TikTok is kind of like the latest, like it's where everybody's going now. But there's plenty of artists that just aren't even on TikTok yet because they're like, well, I don't do that. It's not really my thing. And it's like, cool, you don't do that, but you should be there, because especially TikTok, where it's a place where, you don't even need to have followers to create something that goes viral. You could have literally 0 followers and have a moment there. But just overall, I think social media, from our stance, numbers are important, right? If you're hitting us up or your manager is hitting us up, it's because you're probably looking for us to get behind you. And if we're going to get behind you, we need to know what's your following like how many people can you speak to on a daily or a weekly or a monthly basis, right? We need to see what your following is. So for us, those numbers are important. I also think, though, that probably the biggest piece of social media that a lot of early artists miss out on is the one-on-one conversations. And for me, what my history being in management, I saw this all the time where, we would with an artist, we would actually set up schedules where it was like, you know, somebody was always online to talk to the fans, whether it was DMs or, you know, back in the day, it was MySpace. And, you know, there's always a way to talk to fans. What winds up happening is that when you talk to a fan on a one-on-one basis, you respond to that DM, right? What ends up happening is that fan now feels like they're connected to you. You might not feel it as much, but for them, it's kind of a big deal. So imagine your favorite artist, whoever that might be, if you hit them up and they actually hit you right back, or a day later or whatever, you would be like, oh my God, you know, I'm having a conversation with this guy. You are now going to probably be a lifelong fan. And the difference, you know, a lot of artists don't understand, there's a really big difference between being a fan of a song and a fan of an artist. And your job as an artist is to try to create as many I call them lifers. You want to create as many lifers as you can possibly have, so that as you grow through your career, those lifers are going to be the best staff you can ever have. So they'll multiply. They'll go out there and work for you and help you promote. So creating those one-on-one conversations is just, it's crucial to me. And I know I've seen it firsthand how it can really help develop an artist's full career. I mean, there are artists that I know of that, you know, had hits, you know, a decade ago that can still tour because they, you know, both domestically and internationally, because they have created an army of these lifers. So that's a big deal. But yeah, I mean, I will tell you, from the Pivotal Project side, from the Belief side, from more of a label perspective, we're always looking at, when you send us your EPK, when you send us your music, we're always looking to see what size of, fan base you have. And then more importantly, ratio perspective, what's the engagement rate like? Right. So if you have, you know, 60,000 followers and you put a post up and there's 3 comments, it's kind of like, did they pay for, is this bot? Like did they pay for these followers? Or, you know, like there's not a lot of engagement. But if you're responding to those DMs and you're responding to the comments and you actually have a real fan base, it's pretty evident. It's kind of hard to trick, you know, the industry and the system at this point, because we can see when people are really responding and when they're not.
Yeah, that's true. And you know, when you are posting, it's important to every once in a while look at the analytics that these you can get from your socials on your pages.
Yeah.
Verified pages, because that tells you a lot about what posts are working and what posts are. We have a social media app called TuneCore Social, and it tells you all the data. So, like you were saying earlier, David, like it allows you to pivot and lean into the posts that you're doing that are connecting more.
I'm glad Chris spoke on that, because they're responding to. I don't call them fans. I call them supporters. I'm a fan of them supporting my dream. That's what I call them. And my support base, I call them dreamers. But I have 2 phones, right? So I make sure I set up a line where they can hit me directly. It's not a ploy. It's not something. I really feel like that one-on-one interaction is so key, because I know what I always put myself in their shoes. I'm flattered they even like what I do, but I put myself in their shoes as if like that was me hitting my dream artist and having a general conversation. And I know how far that goes, because what did Tupac say, man? Humble is the new sexy. I genuinely believe that humility is everything. And you know, they're the ones helping drive that. And the crazy part is this. I've never said this before. I get some of my biggest suggestions, the stuff I haven't even thought about, from my supporters. I don't feel like a lot of artists talk about that. I'm like, David, you know, was reading that you were doing this, and how come you never wrote about, you know what, you are absolutely right. And that turns out to be something like, oh, wow, okay. So, yeah, man, interact with your supporters. You know, never get above yourself. Never forget where you come from. Chris, that was an amazing point. That's absolutely right.
That's a great point too, because that goes back to what we were saying before about artists being in a bubble, right? And so when you get an outside perspective, that's sometimes exactly what you need, right? But it also goes back to what I was just saying about like your army of lifers, or whatever you want to call them, could be the best staff you ever have. They will provide feedback, but they'll also work for you. You can do, if they feel that connection with you, you can ask them to post your video the day that it comes out, or you know, create some contesting where it incentivizes them to go out and spread the word about you. I mean, that's what it's all about. It's not so much about, numbers in terms of overall listens, or anybody could end up getting playlisted. It doesn't mean you have a real fan base. So
Yep.
creating a real fan base is what gives you a career, not just a moment.
There you go. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great.
And when you're posting, it's not only, it's like 20% self-promotion, right?
Exactly.
And about 80%, what you're into, who you're into, who you're supporting, what you're supporting. And that's a really good balance to keep people interested and keep people feeling like it's not just like a sales call constantly every time they turn up to one of your channels.
Yep.
Like, okay, so I feel like that you guys covered it for everything. I'm in full agreement with everything you said, and Chris even brought it back to the earlier part of our conversation.
Yeah. By the way, for all you artists out there who think you have it tough, or I can't seem to connect with people, you are living in the greatest technological time in history. You literally, through your phone, have the ability to reach an endless amount of people. So just understand how to use the tools, and you'll be all right. You just got to put the work in. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, spend time on it. And you can use your social media to get people or fans to go follow your Spotify page, which is the number one most important thing to Spotify. So let's kind of move over to talk about DSPs for a while and how you can maximize everything that they're offering for you to do right now. I mean, I understand that, Chris, you understand this too. There's not as many CDs to sell at a show, or have that end cap at Best Buy, but you have people have music everywhere with them and an opportunity at all times. And so besides the apps that the stores have created specifically for you to connect with your fans, like Spotify for music, Apple Music for artists, Amazon Music for artists, Pandora has an app called AMP. All these apps have different features to help you sell your merch, to list your tour dates, your virtual tour dates. But I can say that I know that the followers on Spotify are a real important number to try to build up, and you can use your social media to get your super fans. That's what I call them. To get to follow you on Spotify. So let's talk about how important the numbers from DSPs and just are to both of you, and how to kind of maximize everything that you can get from them.
For sure. I mean, yeah, for us, again, any artist or a manager, when they send music over and they want to, potentially talk about doing a deal, it's the first thing we do. I mean, before we even click play on the song, we are looking at numbers in our A&R meetings. I mean, when our A&Rs are pitching artists, we're talking about them before, some of us may have not even listened yet. We're literally just looking at what are the numbers, where are they positioned, what does their Instagram look like? Those are some of just kind of the entry point things before we even dive into the music. But yeah, the numbers are important. It's kind of what legitimizes you in a sense, and it also shows from a value perspective and a dollar perspective what you're actually worth, because that's how we're making our money on the label side. It's from the streams that are happening. But right. The good news is, I guess the tough news is that being a independent artist, especially if you don't have a full team around you, it's more than a full-time job. I mean, there are so many places to hit and so many things to know. The DSPs, though, like I was saying kind of earlier about you're missing out if you're not where the masses are. The masses are at a number of DSPs, so don't just pay attention to one. Understand that there are tools for essentially all of them, and you have to kind of dive into each one to understand how to maximize them. Spotify, for example, they have something called Canvas, which is an amazing tool, and I don't think artists fully understand it. It's that visual thing that you sometimes see when a song is playing. There's this little 5-second video that's looping. That's your canvas. And what Spotify recently put out was that they actually showed that just having a canvas while a song is playing, when you upload everything, it actually increases your streams by 5%. It also adds to your user playlists by 20%. So there's actually, there's firm numbers on how those things help. I'm glad you brought up AMP and Pandora. I mean, any artist can sign up there and do liners where you're recording a liner, so that after somebody listens to your song on Pandora, your liner comes in and says, hey, I'm so-and-so, that was my song called whatever, make sure you check me out when I come to your area on tour on this date, get your tickets here. Things like that are crucial. I mean, we didn't have those things 20 and 30 years ago. So the fact that all these tools are available now and can help you, really sort of solidify the relationship between yourself and music and your fan, it's amazing to have those tools. So it's shame on you if you don't take advantage of them.
I wanted to say, like, Canvas is like one of my favorite promotional opportunities right now. Spotify had it in a beta for about 2 years, and then they opened it up to everyone. And the best thing about it is it's free. And I know
my favorite price.
I know.
$3.99.
$3.99.
I love that.
It is.
Just like socials.
Exactly. They call it, and I know everybody's seen it. Maybe you didn't realize what it was, but they call it like the album cover or album artwork for the digital age. It really does. The engagement is crazy on it, and you can put a canvas on old songs or past releases. As long as you own the video file, you can lay it over any of your releases.
By the way, Spotify also makes it really easy too. I mean, if you go to, I think it's within the Spotify for artists, or actually it's canvas.spotify.com. They have a link to Sound Better, which that's if you want to find graphic artists to help you create these things, like they provide you those things. So again, take advantage, learn about all of them and take advantage.
David, what was your experience like building your followers at Spotify and just being on all of the platforms?
I think obviously consolidating. I got a really special team, man. And I want to say this too to a lot of the artists out there: when you're curating all these relationships with people, man, like it's so important. It's invaluable. Your Rolodex is almost more valuable than your playlist in the aspect of getting people that really believe in what you do, not just for the dollar behind what they're doing. So mine's been so organic, but it was just kind of like hit or miss, trial by error. Like I just realized within my content, some people are artists that like to be mysterious. They put out one thing a year and disappear, right? And those fan bases, they like, no, you're not gonna do that. And you know what I mean? You're gonna release music every week, and I've realized that I've tried to ever since I started releasing music almost every week. It's worked best for me, just to engage. And some people might miss stuff and they catch up, which is great. And I'll post them like, "Oh, is this out?" I'm like, "Yeah, it came out like a month ago." "Oh, I didn't know that. I just got this. I will get this too." So you really got to be careful and strategic about how you do it, because it works for different people. Everyone's different. Look at The Weeknd. He's this elusive, like pops up when he wants to, and it's just everyone's different. So, but it's been organic for me for sure.
Cool. I want to make sure that we talk about like the pre-saves, pre-ads, pre-orders, smart links, all of these digital marketing tools really will help let your fans know that you've got something coming up and how to easily get to it.
Yes.
The pre-ads and the pre-saves will have your music automatically saved to a listener's digital library on that platform as soon as it's released, and that's huge. I think that just increases your first week stream numbers.
Yes.
When your new music comes out. I want to say it's like 20% is what I've read about Spotify, for instance, because it's already in their library and it's going to play and it goes to their release radar, for instance, on Spotify. That's getting your music in front of people and having it like right there where they're used to going to listen to it is super important. And also want to mention, like, it's not just Spotify, right? Everybody, wants to be more pitched to editors on Spotify, and you have to use the Spotify for Artists pitching tool. You want to get into that algorithm in that app. That's why they created it. So they know how much you're working, what you're doing, how consistently you're releasing music. But don't forget, Tencent is the hugest digital store in China. And, Russia has Boom and DK and BK. And so we always tell people, like what Chris said, is go where all the fans can be, because it is really important to get your music in front of as many people as potentially listen. And we're in a global society. We're not just performing for people in the U.S. right now. So.
Exactly. Yeah, and just in terms of the pre-save thing too, just remember the whole thing about 60,000 songs every day being uploaded. There is a very finite amount of attention you're going to be able to grab on release day, especially if it's a Friday when everybody else is releasing. So the more leeway you have working into that release day, if you can grab somebody's attention on a Tuesday and they see your post and it's a pre-save, asking them to pre-save, why not have them do it right there and then instead of telling them, hey, come back again on Friday? Well, on Friday, they might not see your post. They might be busy. They might get 100 other things from artists. Like, get to them before your release comes out, and then all those numbers are going to count towards your first week. So it's definitely helpful.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Well, I think we're going to have some questions. We got some questions coming from Kevin. Does viral on TikTok translate to music sales? So that's a really great question. So I know how when you have your music attached to a video on TikTok, it doesn't make any money according to how many times people watch that one video. Your music on TikTok makes money when a lot of people make videos using your music.
Yes.
Correct.
TikTok wasn't really created to be a music streaming app. It's a lifestyle app, right? It's really more about your lifestyle and performance based and community. So it's not specifically. It wasn't built specifically to be a platform for artists to earn money. It's more exposure.
Yeah, I mean, correct. Like it's being monetized on how many videos are actually created, not actually how many times they're watched. That being said, the answer is yes, and the answer is no. There have been plenty of occasions where a song is blown up on TikTok and it's crossed over onto other platforms and exploded. There have been plenty that have done really well on TikTok that have not crossed over to other platforms and streamed really well. And maybe, they might just be lending themselves to that physical, visual experience versus somebody going to the platform and searching for it to listen to. So there's really not like one cookie cutter answer. Obviously, if it does go viral on TikTok, you have to understand that there's going to be more people that are going to hear it. But unless they have the desire to listen to it as a song, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to go to another platform to go look for it.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm glad you said that, Chris.
I'm with you, David. I love everything Chris is saying.
Oh, stop. You're going to make me blush.
What kind of content do you think is the most popular or effective? That's a really good question. I think it's like whatever is authentically you.
I think music is subjective, man. I think that's a personal preference. I think that's a personal journey. I think that's only something you could really know about your brand and your story. I don't really necessarily think you, Chris. You're
100% right. I mean, I can tell you that, I mean, to throw an example, I'm not like a cat person. I've seen these like cat memes that like send me into a hole. You know what I mean? Like I can't get enough of. So, I there's really no answer. David's right. It's a totally subjective thing. So I think you shouldn't look at it you shouldn't be creating, whether it's a TikTok or some other piece of content, simply based on the end goal of like, oh, well, I need to have X amount of views in order for this to be considered successful. It's really about, are you portraying yourself the way you want to be portrayed as an artist? Are you proud of this piece of content? Is it something that you think you might be embarrassed about 6 months from now or 60 years from now, in which case maybe you shouldn't even put it up? It's, those are really the basis. I think we have to kind of redefine the what successful means, because I think, honestly, I think I mean, Gary Vee says it all the time, but like I think happiness is the biggest dictator of successful. So if you are looking to reach those numbers, I mean, just know that there's not necessarily one type of content that's going to work over another. It just greatness is what works. You know what I mean? Being different, being able to stand out from the crowd is really what works.
This is a good one. I have to get better with social media. How do you keep your life private while being an artist? Create 2 different channels. have a private channel with a different name, and then invite your friends and family to it that you really want to just keep up with in a private way and share life moments with, and then have a separate channel as an artist if it's getting to be too much. And that way also you keep a part of yourself for the people closest to you. And what do you guys think about that?
So I mean, real quick, I think it's fairly easy. Like you're the one controlling your social media, so you dictate what you put out there and what you don't. So look, it becomes a different thing when you're A-list and when you have paparazzi following you, and then you start to lose some control. If you're a developing artist, you control what you put on your social media. So if you don't want some part of your life out there, don't put it out there. It's pretty simple.
I agree.
Are we going to get some leads or some places to find leads for our contact list to send EPKs? So you guys have, if you have access to the internet, you can find all of these editors yourself. And also, if you're involved in TuneCore rewards, you have the opportunity to learn about your music business through master classes and through VIP sessions. But you can also just start on the internet and look up the media that you'd be interested in reading about, and you think that your music applies to, and just look for the contact us page. Start making a spreadsheet. Like Tina and I always joke about spreadsheets, but they are valuable. Keep email addresses.
And also, we haven't talked about, I know out of all the socials, we haven't talked about LinkedIn, but if you are looking to track people down, whether they're music supervisors and you're looking to get, your song on their shows or in their films, or it's people at labels, or it's publicists, or, insert title here, LinkedIn is an amazing place to connect with people when it comes to business. So if you're not already familiar and you're not already on that platform, I would highly suggest getting on there.
Hello, I just did a live recording that I plan to release as a project. Should I air the video on social media before I release it on iTunes, etc.? I want to hear what you have to say about it. David, you look like you.
That's a great question. I actually battle with the same thing because that really just depends on how confident you are in the song. I mean, how long has it been since you put out a video? You think this has the most shock value because outside the song, when people see you, maybe you went through some COVID weight, whatever it is. Like if this is like gonna shock people, I learned from me. I like to have things a little more uniform. Like when the video comes out, I'd like to have the song be available because people live in a microwave world. They want it now if they hear it. You don't want people to rip your song, but it is 2021. People are gonna do what they want to do. But I think it's important to have things uniform now more than ever because, like Chris said, how many songs get released? You say like 60,000.
60,000 get uploaded every single day to Spotify.
Absolutely. And so I think it's important to have everything's uniformed. And to any artist that's watching this too, man, TuneCore Awards and just being a TuneCore artist and being independent has really changed my life, man. It's really put me in the driver's seat. And I think it's very inspiring for other people when you say that you are a self-made individual and you do things, and you do what you love, your art, as an independent artist. And that comes ownership and it's a different level of respect. And I think it's something that everybody should get involved in that's watching this. That wasn't a pitch. That's real.
Yeah, I mean, everything we've been talking about today and much more is like part of our TuneCore Rewards program. So if you're tuning in, like you have access to it. Please, we created it all for you, and there's more coming. So check it out, dig through it. It's free. It's all free, and you get rewards from it as well. So
Free 99, baby.
$3.99.
Best price there is.
I'm not sure if Kevin's going to come say goodbye to us or not, but thank you, everybody.
Here I am.
You're like a magician.
You know, I'm pulling levers back here. I just wanted to say, first of all, that was amazing. I want to say thank you to our host, Amy Lombardi, Chris Maltese, David Corey. You guys put on a true clinic. I know we only had an hour. You guys covered a lot in an hour. That was great. And, you know, I know we had tons of questions that we couldn't get to in the chat, but, you know, thank you for everyone that was engaging. Thank you for engaging with each other, making some friends in there and sharing ideas. You know, it's an independent community. It's super important. You know, I hope everyone did join us, was able to take notes and absorb some of this stuff because, you know, we got no doubt that's going to help you in your efforts moving forward. You know, be sure to share any gems you heard here on social. Tag us at TuneCore. We're going to shout you out. In the meantime, like they said, be sure to check out TuneCore Rewards. You can get in there right from your dashboard. You know, just wanted to say thanks to everyone and to have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot. Take care, everyone.
See you guys.